evening. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Hello, Dr. Mac.
Well, good afternoon, Pastor Shirley.
Yes, ma'am. It is so wonderful. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being with us on the Mother's Board Inc. today, which is Friday, the 9th
Yes.
of August in the year 2024. And it's just a pleasure to be with you and you be with us today. We have some discussioning. I know I said that wrong. Discussing to do today about different things. So we're going to do our prayer. Dear God, as we sit before you to speak, we pray to you that our souls you receive. And if we should die before we finish, we pray to you, dear God, in the name of Jesus, that any outstanding sins will be forgiven. Amen. 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 So that covers all of us, and we're praying for each and every one of you. And we don't dare start without a prayer for the world. And so that's what we do. And I thank my co-hosts for being here with me, and we're in agreement with what's going on. And we have just great discussion today. And Dr. Mack, would you read our discussion questions? Do you have them before you? Would you just
Yes, yes,
read?
I do. I
Okay,
have to
please.
make it up a little bit. Number one, would you like for me to read them all or just one?
Yes, all of them, please.
Okay. Our discussion questions today are what did you feel about some of the latest rulings and decisions of the United States Supreme Court? Number two, what are your thoughts um, on President Biden's desire to limit terms of the Supreme Court justices? Number three, if you had a chance to bring a case before the Supreme Court, what would it be? Oh, wow. If you could have a conversation with Vice President Kamala Harris, what would you talk about with her? Number five, if you could have a conversation with Donald Trump, what would you talk about? Number six, do you feel that our education system in the United States is comparable and adequate for um, a present
Uh-oh, let me find
yeah, it's just as they say, this writing is mighty little. Uh,
it. Okay.
Basically, a present status in the world. Number seven, what events have you heard about um, that causes you great concern? And what would you think about them? And number eight is artificial intelligence. And that,
Artificial intelligence.
yes,
So,
what are your thoughts about that?
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Artificial intelligence it seems to be taking over when it makes it so easy for people, and people are not really paying attention. They're not really paying attention. We've seen horror stories about AI on the movies and everything way before this time came in 2024, and what them taking over the world and taking over everybody's homes and all of that. So we have to be careful about that. And I just went right on start talking about artificial intelligence. So, Dr. Mack, would you like to say?
Oh, well, are we going to start with artificial intelligence or the Supreme
We
Court?
could just go there and then go back to we'll go to the Supreme Court.
You know, I didn't say good morning, but good morning. Um, with artificial intelligence, when I started thinking about it, I said it's too late to start complaining. As you said, it's been in science fiction for a long time, and we use it every day without really thinking about using it. It's here. We're using it, and I believe there are some great gains from it, as far as medical kinds of things, and but when we start trying to use it too much for profit, when we start taking it and using it for bad or for evil, then we've gone a wee bit too far. Now, when I thought about it and I worked on it, I said to myself, where is it you wouldn't want it to be? And mine was in religion. You know, you know, I just, and it's there already. It is
Mhm.
there already. I mean,
Mhm.
there are things now that I can go back and have a conversation with John the Baptist through artificial intelligence. I think that goes too far. You know, I don't mind your creativity, but let's make sure we label it artificial intelligence.
Right.
For those good things that come out of it, like maybe a cure for dementia, or maybe a cure for childhood cancer, I'm for that. And it's not going to go away. We have to accept it, but we're going to have to pray diligently that it's used for the right purposes.
Right. So true. And that is wonderful. Those are great points. Pray that it's used because we know how it is when we get something that works. Some minds are going in different directions, and pretty soon they're using them for so many harmful things. So we just, like you said, the key to it is praying that the good outweighs the bad.
Yes, I
Okay, so now we can go to the Supreme Court question or discussion, and that is,
that is. What did we think about some of the recent Supreme Court rulings? And since I got to ask the question, we'll see what you think about that.
well, I'm telling you, the Supreme Court really, those rulings are based on what affiliation they have. And I was checking a while ago and reading up on the Supreme Court, and we have uh, six Republicans, three Democrats, and they say the Democrats lean more toward liberalism. And so we have them, whatever they believe, or whatever the party that they represent, they tend to go with that party. So, and then that decision on what is the immunity, I was checking that out, and I was really checking it out about I wanted to know about the what is it, the core constitutional powers. And I looked that up. It said the Supreme Court ruled in Trump versus United States 2024 that all presidents have absolute criminal immunity for official acts under core constitutional powers, presumptive immunity for other official acts, and no immunity for personal actions. And then that could be a wide range of things. And I did look up the core constitutional powers. It said that they have that immunity when they appoint justices to the Supreme Court. And let me find that because I have all of that right here on the telephone. Supreme Court. Let's see. Presumptive immunity of other immunity to official acts under core constitution. Now let me go and get that core constitutional because I had it right here. But anyway, it was talking about they could appoint the justices; they would be held accountable for that, and doing things while they are in office in the presidential status that's like for protected, and then the military. That's what it was. And so it was talking about the court declared that a president is immune from prosecution when exercising the core power. This thing changed on immune from execution when exercising the core powers of the presidency. Immunity means a person cannot be prosecuted, and it's not merely a defense to prosecution, although the majority did not outline the exact core powers nor what would lay outside them as an unofficial act. So they didn't really specify a lot,
Right.
but it gave enough for people to file lawsuits to try to get their criminal charges dropped. And
Right.
also, it was saying there was a part in there that said that if people are first time, felons,
Yeah.
something like that, and I think those people, they call them, what is it, J, what is it, J something. Anyway, the ones that did the damage up there that he told them to do. Some of those people are getting out of jail.
Wow. Oh yeah.
J6, that's January 6th, right? Yes.
January 6th. Yeah.
Some of
Yeah.
those people, because of this rule.
And this was one of those rulings that we had, and it's interesting that I chose one. I chose the one you did with presidential immunity. I chose that one, and then I also did the January 6th one. And,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting. When I was going through looking at them, I wanted to see what who dissented and who approved and all that,
Yes,
because it tells us a lot about the makeup of the court at the moment.
exactly.
And as you said, I agree wholeheartedly. But I also agree with the critics who say that this decision is going to come back in a very negative way. Sometimes you think you're getting a gift, and it turns out to be not a gift. And that's
Right.
what this might do, because it was sort of steered toward a certain in a certain direction. They did rule on guns again, um, and it may not be what we wanted, but they did rule on it.
Mm-hmm.
But they upheld the 1994 law intended to protect the victims of domestic violence. So if a man is the one who has been beating up on the woman, and that man has a gun, when they come, that man is in greater trouble than he was before.
Okay.
And I'm thinking that didn't have to go to the Supreme Court. Come on, let's think about that. To have someone who's already abusive and to have a gun, he's got a weapon. But at least they did good there. They held it. And they also ruled on redistricting, and we know what that is. Every time, a year before the election, they redraw the voting,
Those
the
lines.
voting, the voting districts, and they sort of haul them out according to political party, you know. But they did rule on that. They also ruled on bump stocks. And those are the things that convert the guns where you can do the multiple shooting or the
Oh,
repetitive
yeah.
shooting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But me on that one, I don't think they went quite far enough on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish they had, gone a little bit further, on those particular rulings. They did come consumer protectorism, NRA, and free speech. So you
Mm-hmm.
can't sort of say what you want to say in a way, but they did clear the way for the NRA, the National Rifle Association,
Mm-hmm.
to proceed with its lawsuit in New York. Air pollution, the SEC, Big Pharma, they ruled on those. But I imagine you have the same ones. Social media, um, emergency abortions, which is not clear. It's about as clear as mud.
Right.
But they did clear the way for emergency abortions.
Okay.
And the homeless. This is the one that got me. Every state has homeless people. And
Yes.
because they have homeless people, the states to the west, California, Arizona, Oregon, where the weather's a lot conducive, they prove that the homeless people can no longer sleep on those sidewalks, and especially when the shelters are available. Um, but something has to be done for the
Mm-hmm.
homeless people. But if we're waiting for the court system to do it, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. But those are some of the ones that got me. When I say got me, made me
Yes.
go, hmm.
Yes. Those are good ones. Thank you so much for talking about those. And then I found what I wanted to talk about is like the Supreme Court ruled that the president has absolute immunity for core constitutional powers. And so these powers are outlined in Article 2 of the Constitution and include serving as commander in chief of the military,
Mm-hmm.
appointing Supreme Court justices and ambassadors, and granting pardons. So he has that. He can do that. So that's what I wanted. I wanted to know what that. What is it? The core constitutional. What is it? Power. I want to know what that is. And then also another thing about the Supreme Court. President Biden is talking about. He's starting the discussion about limiting their terms,
Yes.
and
I
then also appointing one or nominating one every 2 years. And I think that sounds good. And of course, Clarence Thomas, I see, he's the oldest sitting, he's the longest sitting one in there. And we remember what a difficult time he had getting in there. But he
yeah.
got in there even with all that scarring on his record and all that, and they still put him in there. And what did I say something else about the Supreme Court? What's number two?
I'm sorry.
It's not. This is all I had about this. I mean, this is the one question
Yes.
about. Okay, and then another thing I want to say about the Supreme Court, President Biden. Well, also the Supreme Court. It seems like they are untouchable.
They're
They can
not.
do what they want to do, not be held accountable because they were saying 2014 and 2019 that they know of now, and I'm pretty sure they have other records of Clarence Thomas riding on Harlan, what's his name, Crow's jet for free, accepting gifts.
Yeah,
And
I know.
yes, all of that. And then Justice Alito had the
Aaliyah.
flag upside down
Right.
at his home. They were not. They have not been reckoned with about that. And then, who was that? Clarence Thomas's wife
Oh,
was at the J6 destruction protest.
yeah. But
No, they have no consequences. They haven't been dealt with about that. And so, what we need to do is have them held accountable. And then, like, several of them are appointed for life anyway. That's a long time. Some.
well, the thing with that is that President Biden, and I agree with you. There comes a now we've talked about ageism, and ageism is what really got President Biden, and ageism ageism is what's affecting the Republican presumptive nominee right now,
Mhm.
to the point that he just disappeared there for a while. But um, they should not be appointed for life because things happen. And I understand why he wants to make these reforms, and by law he can do it. But we forget that there are checks and balances. This is a
Mhm.
real issue now. We have three things going on with the government. No one branch is supposed to make these decisions, but guess what? They're not to make decisions that are against the public good. And what's
Mhm.
happening is we forget that we've got an executive branch, a congressional branch, and a judicial branch.
Right.
I think one of the candidates feel that the executive branch is much more powerful than the other two, and you can appoint people who think like you so that you can get done the things that you want done.
Exactly.
Under Article 3 of the Constitution, Congress has the right to do this. They have the right, and you know, I imagine President Biden wishes he had done this earlier because that was one of the situations when he was elected. Should he expand the court? Should he impose term limits? He didn't do it, but now he sees that he should have done it.
Mhm.
Yeah, but under Article 3, he can do that. That it has to do with the ethics that are involved and the time that they serve. Now, he's proposing 18 years. Well, the Constitution gives him 18 years. But we have these situations of the active judges and the ones who are not active, and Congress has a right to say that. But we have to be careful with that. This appointing. I remember when President Obama was in there, and it was a Republican House, and they refused to let his candidate go forward, his nominee.
Exactly.
But now you have sort of a one-sided court here. You have
Hmm.
three. When I was going through this, you have three, usually the women, who dissent on just about every, everything because they see it for what it is. And under the Constitution, Congress, but President Biden has to get it through, and the new president has to get it through Congress that we do, and we are able to limit those terms, you know, and we won't be, the ethical part is this, Thomas, we won't be taking gifts, we won't be leaking information because Roe versus Wade was leaked unofficially before it came out. And the last one on the immunity was leaked before it came out.
Right.
So ethics has to go. I like your word, accountability. I like that so much better. Accountability has to be. If you're going to hold the other branches accountable, these people have to be held accountable too. They must be held accountable.
Right. And you know what? That man in that movie about Malcolm X said that's too much power
Too
for
much.
one
Too
man.
much.
And nine of them, that's a lot of power to overturn laws and make laws, do decisions and rules and all of that. And then there are so many that they have not touched yet. And so I know the second question is if you, it might not be number two, but I know it's on there. If
It's
you
on
had
there.
an chance to go before the Supreme Court with the case, what would you take to them?
Well, I'll go first. I'm not necessarily a proponent, but I would ask them to go back, and I want them to revoke, put back Roe versus Wade. I'm not one who advocates whatever, but I think
Mhm.
every woman has that right. I don't think the men have that right to make that decision for women. My faith won't go that way. But for those who would like to go that way, that's, as my great aunt used to say, between them and their God. But I would like for them to put it back, give them the right. The men in the state don't have the right either. They don't have it, the national government, but put it back. Let the woman make a decision. And then we had the women who had to leave the state to find some hospital care. I think that's awful. You live in the state, you should have the hospitalization available to you in the state. But if that is the one case, I would want them to redo. Go back
Mhm.
and look at it. But don't do politics with it. Think about the woman as a God created being. Don't do politics because a certain faction wants it this way.
Right, right. And I totally understand. Like you said, we don't advocate it for it or anything like that. But like you said, people have the right to make their own choice. And then it made it more dangerous for people because people are going to do it anyway. And some of them are not going to get the proper health care that they need when they do it. And that's why, who is this state that's putting these billboards up here in Texas telling the doctors that they can come there and practice?
Right.
And so now what is that state? It's not Kansas, is it?
Um. Oh no, it's New Mexico. You have these people
Okay,
running
New
across,
Mexico,
running across
yes.
the line like crazy. And I'm thinking, what are you going to do? Put fake people there, or are you going to put some more barriers up to keep people from going around? But
Eh,
on a serious note, that's not for me to decide. It isn't.
right, right. And so, hey, I think, I know we have a choice. And then it goes back to us as people and as God's people, His creation. He doesn't force us to do anything, He gives us a choice.
Thank you. Thank
He gives us a choice. And then, but the United States is, well, all of the countries evidently have always been dominated by males, even though the women are the ones that really initiate all of the things that are happening, and the men take them and run with them. They
Yeah.
take them and run with them. So we have a lot of ideas and all of that, but it's still dominated by the men.
Yeah.
Dominated, and they believe in using their power right or wrong.
And
They
they do.
believe in having their way, right or wrong. But we're working our way in there. We're working our way in there. We're working our way in there. But anyway, we know that nobody, they can say absolute power, but nobody has absolute power.
No, no. What case would you take before the court?
Well, I thought about that one, but I wouldn't do that one. It would be more on something civil. If I would have a case and I would have to take it to the Supreme Court, then it would be for rights. And they would have to put more laws in place to protect the people that they call the minority. Because, I mean, there's so much leeway in the laws where people can get around the law and do whatever they want to discriminate against people. And we see it each and every day. And so if I had a case and I could take it to them, I would have them to tighten up the laws against discrimination, or the laws, for discrimination. They need to be tightened up, and people need to be held responsible for the things that they do, because there's too much looseness and there's too much going on here. I know you can't make people, but if they would hold these laws up like they should, a lot less crime and all of that would exist. But we're so relaxed, and all of that in this country until it comes time for us to have something, and then we go all out for it. So anyway, that's what I'll do for mostly for more strict laws concerning civil rights for everybody,
Um,
not
you,
just for people of our persuasion, but everybody.
I
Okay.
you didn't ask for a second one, but if I may very quickly share a second one,
Okay.
that if I were to take one before, it would be something we don't talk about much, and it would be for the court to rule against child marriages. There are still
Ooh.
child marriages that are legal. There are 14 states, I believe, where child marriage is still
Mhm,
legal. I
mhm.
we get out in the United Nations and other world organizations, and we say, "Oh, how awful! You sold your daughter for a cow because you needed food to eat for your family." Well, we are still allowing 14-year-olds and even 12. There are some
Mhm.
states, if the parents sign, 12-year-olds can get married. But I have to say it, in some they have a limit on the age. The man can be no more than 21 or 25, but it's still such an age discrepancy.
Right.
So before we go, what is it? Pointing pointing our fingers at someone else. We need to sort of take a look at the beam in our own eye here. We need to get that off the book. I realize there are some religious communities that do that, but I'm not saying, get into a big church state thing, but
Mhm.
tighten it up.
Right.
Tighten it up, you know, off my
Yep.
soapbox. Off my soapbox.
I like that. You stay on your soapbox. That's what the mother's board is all about. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us today. We are having our discussions. So, we're going before the Supreme Court in our imaginary pond. And the next one is,
Our next one has to do with having a conversation with Kamala, Vice President Kamala Harris. And since I get to read the question, you get to answer first. Okay, if you were hypothetical to have a conversation with Vice President Kamala, what would you talk about?
I would do probably basic conversation and a reminder and uh, a caution to don't forget who you represent. Don't forget that you work for us. We're not your subject. Don't forget that, we are human beings and we know, and I would also tell her, I understand that even the ticket that you ran on, your ideas and the things that you want to accomplish, I understand that everything is not going to be as you want it to be. You can't get everything accomplished without making some compromises. But stay as close to it as you possibly can without selling your soul.
Okay.
That's that's what I would say.
That would be a great conversation to have with any politician. You know,
Hmm.
um, you know, only a king can abdicate.
Right.
So it's a good conversation. Uh, I would, if I were to have a conversation with her, I would go back and I'd pick up what they're drumming on now. She was the border czar. Well, I would ask her, what did you learn when you visited those countries like Venezuela? She did visit them right after she became vice president. What did you learn about why they wanted to come to America? And now that um, you are in a position to respond to it, how would you respond? Would you send Americans and volunteers and skilled workers to help them build up their countries? So you would be like Booker T. Washington, cast down your buckets where you are, you know, which comes from, was it Moby Dick by Herman Melville? They were dying of thirst on the water, and they were asking the ship coming in for water, and the people on the other ship said, just put your buckets in the water. It's fresh water. You know, you know. I would ask her how would she tell them to do that, and would she support them in doing that? Because nothing's gonna happen until, how do we say it? Until there's no need to come. The
Right.
grass, my grandfather raised me to, he said the grass always looks green on the other side.
Hmm.
But he said, but if you water and fertilize your own, it'll look just as green. So, you know,
Right.
what can you do to, I am not talking about becoming the guardian of the world, but these nations that continuously come across the border, something, we're trying to do it by changing the leadership, but I think it should be a grassroots situation. Now, the next one is, what if you had an opportunity to have a conversation with Donald Trump, what would you say?
Well, first I'd have to,
Yeah, you don't have 10 days to do it, because I
I
know
would
you have a lot to
have
say.
to take something. Oh, you go ahead with yours. Go ahead.
I know you'd have a lot. Start at the beginning, as they say. What would you talk about?
Well, first I would have to have something to keep his attention. So I would really have to do a lot of study so that I can have something to keep his attention on the two of us having a conversation because his attention span is shot. And then I would talk to him, and it would be kind of difficult, but I would have to talk to him about the same things that I would talk to Kamala about. But then I would have to also ask him, I want to know what he really, really thinks and what is going on in his mind. I would try my best to get him to focus long enough to tell me some of his thoughts and how he's thinking at the time that we're sitting there having a conversation because his attention span is shot. So I probably would spend most of the time trying to keep his attention, but I would talk with him about some of the same things and ask him what would he do differently than what he did as the president before. And I would ask him, does he see any need for improvement? And I'm pretty sure we all know the answer. But those are some things that I would talk to him about. But the main thing is trying to get his attention to keep him focused on us having a conversation and keep him on the topics that we would be talking about. And so I guess it would be hopeless, huh?
We didn't discuss it, but my response was very similar to yours.
Oh,
Mine,
wow.
yeah, it is. It would have to do with the language that he uses,
Mhm.
um, and the examples that he uses, and the fact that is there any sensitivity to it? And I would go to the biblical verse in Matthew, I believe it's Matthew 7, cast down your pearls before, you know, I'd
Don't
have to
catch the
get that
pearl before the swine.
right. That is the
Hmm.
one that I would go to, because I read that verse just as you would, as you said you would, and because I'm talking to you, you're using third right kind of language, um, and you're idolizing people. You may be doing it satirically, but there are people who don't understand satire. So you want to promote people in the world. So let's watch our language. Let's clean it up and try not to make it so offensive. And you can have a full conversation without demoralizing, dehumanizing, um, people. I love what you said. You want to give me something specific. What is it? What do you really think about this? Not what the people want to hear, your fan base, but what do you think about it? Because guess what? We don't know yet. Um, we have no idea what he really feels about Social Security. He's changed the opinion on abortion. You know, come on. We are going to be an isolationist like the Monroe Doctrine. What is it you really want? Because we are all going to be in this thing together,
Yes.
as they sing about. But just clean up your language because I can't hear what you're saying because your language is turning me off. But if I were going to have a conversation, that would be one of the things you know, that would really, really make me want to, you know, talk, to
Right.
understand.
Right. And I don't blame him. I don't dislike him because I understand that the person you see and hear is the person. I don't think he's putting on any, nothing false. I think he is just what he is and who he is, and he cannot help. And then when people agree with your ideas and agree with all the things that you do, and some people were just looking for someone to bring out all these other ideas, well, rehash all of these prejudices and all of that. But I think he's who he is. I don't think he can help being who he is, and I think it had to do with his entire childhood, from his childhood on up to now. And
Yeah,
he is who he is, and it'll take an act of God to change him, but he can be changed.
yeah. It's I don't want to be facetious, but I'm thinking about the cartoon Popeye. I am what I am. That's all that I am. You
Uh,
know, but just clean up the language.
if he possibly can. Yeah, and then when you have people in your ear, see, people who work with people or people that work with people, if they have their ear, and if they know the person's personality, they know how they think from working with them, then they know how to manipulate people.
Yeah.
And that's part of the thing that's going on with him now. Because if you would, people putting things in his mind. Because when he went to that, what was that organization where he was talking about the job?
And
What
National Black
I
Journalists.
I heard somebody else. They had just thrown that toward him, and he said it, and that's how they manipulate him. His camp. Somebody's manipulating him
Well,
and putting those ideas because he doesn't know to say that, and then when he says it, he really doesn't know what he's saying. And it's because he is who he is, and there's somebody manipulating him and throwing these things and causing him to act the way, well, not act, but say some things which he has no idea about what he's saying. And that's it's not right. And that's why I say I cannot be angry at him. I cannot, because I know, I can see what type of person he is, and he's just who he is. Okay, that's enough time on him, huh? Okay.
well, I did want to comment on the fear factor when we're talking about the language. One of the forms of manipulation is fear. You know, when we talk about fear, you know,
Mhm.
plant the idea that something bad's going to happen if you don't do this. If you don't do this, then I'm the one. You know, one other little thing. I didn't understand what he meant when he met with the evangelicals and he told them that if you go out and vote, if you vote for me this time, you won't have to vote again. I didn't understand that part of it. Um, does that mean that we won't have any elections after this one, or what?
Well, evidently, that's one of his ideas. He wants to stay in there as long as he can. And so I'm pretty sure that is something that's going to be brought up, uh, in the very near future, because we can see them working up to that. Because, like, we heard some people say that there is a desire in its mind for dictatorship, and that's what people that's him. That's in his mind.
Well,
And so when you have people to agree with you, and just to be there to agree with you, whether they really agree with you or not, but to have the stats and be there in the camp with him, those people are going to continue to push that with him. And there's a lot of manipulation going on there.
yeah, that goes with that conversation of this is a battle for democracy. This whole election is, and he
Yeah,
made comments about Kim Jong Un and Xi of China. These people are in for a long time, a very very long time.
yeah.
But
But what we're going to have to do, the bottom line of it all is that we're going to have to get out there or have those ballots sent to us where we can vote and get our vote in and overwhelm the polls with the votes so that the electoral college cannot uh, flip whatever, you know what I'm saying.
yeah,
Yeah,
can't be manipulated. The electoral college can't be
right,
manipulated.
right, right. And we have to have the popular vote, and it has to be so substantial that they cannot manipulate it, as you say. Okay, that's good. Thank you, Dr. Matt. Okay,
Well,
what's our next one?
education. What are the,
Oh,
we wanted to talk about the education
and
system.
you're an educator, so would you like to?
Oh, so she wants me to start. Well, I take a look at the countries they say that are the 10 best in the world, and I have to tell you, the United States is nowhere, no, not even at the bottom of the page, not even on there. Okay, but let's go back and start at the beginning.
Okay,
What's the purpose of education? What is the purpose of education? When things started, we needed to learn things. We needed to have knowledge in order to survive. So
Mhm.
on a more global scale, we have to talk about knowledge as being the foundation for global interactions. Again, we're not talking about going and saving the other world. It's trading, fair
Mhm.
terms with the other world. So we need to have a system of education where people can make a living, where people can have a life, where people can socially interact and have a
Mhm.
future. That's pretty much what we did. And even going back to ancient biblical times, that was the purpose of education. So starting with early childhood, going all the way up, I think when a child is old enough to go to school in the United States, it's three. We are, I don't know now if it's mandatory or not, but it's encouraged. Pre-kindergarten age 3, and
Okay.
then kindergarten. What you have to do though, when you got that, is to make sure you're not burning the child out against learning. But we do have all of those things in place. But if we use them effectively, we can have an idea of what a child can do. The whole idea is to get the get the child trained so that he can be retrained to work.
Right.
I'm not sure that's right. There are some countries that give early tests so that you can find out what it is that the child is good at. What is it that he or she is good at, and they put them in a path of learning.
Mhm.
Let's just use Germany, for example. When a child becomes a certain age and that child wants to be a mechanic at Mercedes Benz, then
Mhm.
all of his training is geared to learning everything there is to know about Mercedes Benz and all that long before he gets into the factory. But over here, we're doing, let me just teach everybody, and some people the same way, and
Mhm.
then we're going to retrain you to do. I hated that phrase. We're going to train for jobs that we don't know exist. How? That's an oxymoron. How in the world can you train for something you don't know exists? But you're basically saying I'm gonna give them a general education, and then they're gonna have to go to upper level college to do it, or an internship or an apprentice. We don't really have a lot of apprenticeships too much anymore. But is it competitive? Yeah, we are being competitive, but we need to think about the future. How do we handle this for the future generations? And why are we comparing ourselves against others? We need to, in this case, become more inclusive. Who do we need? What workers do we need in the United States for the future? But that's pretty much where I am there. And
Mhm.
I'm going to turn it over. What would you like to say?
Okay. I was studying. Well, I went to and it said the United States. This is an overview talking about the educational system. And so many times we hear the phrase, "We're number one in this. We're number one in this. We're the number one country in the whole wide world. We're the best people." All of that, but the United States education system has mixed results, just like you were saying, when compared to other countries. Some say that the U.S. has the best education system in the world with superior resources and facilities than other countries and great job opportunities after graduation. However, others say that U.S. students' academic achievement is falling behind their global counterparts. More that U.S. compares to other countries, and it's talking about the in 2022, the U.S. 16th out of 81 countries in science and 34th in math on international tests. In 2023, the U.S. ranked sixth in reading, 10th in science, and 26th in math. And so the US's math score was below the OECD average of 472 and well below the top five countries, which were all in Asia. And then it talks about 2024 finding. The U.S. Spends and talking about how much it spends on the students. And then, did you ever have to buy supplies for your students also when you were in the classroom?
Whenever things came up, you pretty much you budgeted. The state gives you approximately $10,000 per student, plus you have the special programs that you get funding for. But yeah, every teacher, every lab manager, pretty much spends money themselves for the classroom
Hmm.
because um, you can actually open the doors of Amazon, and the teachers will say, "I don't have enough supplies," but
Hmm.
it's a combination. It's a stool with three legs. You have the teacher, you have the student, and you have the parent. But yes, I did spend. In fact, my husband used to say, "Okay, you have the house budget, you have the school budget. Try to remember which one is first." I would definitely do my best to. But yeah, if you know, there's no point in requisitioning when it's not there. You know, so you just buy it. But thank God they have municipalities now that give school supplies. You
Hmm.
have organizations that have teachers just open the doors and let teachers come in. It's been really great. But education it has to be that way. You better have that triangle going on, that stool, that three-legged stool. And yeah, I agree. We are good at what we do. It's just that we need to get better. And then
Hmm.
we need to take a look at the kids who are pushed out. And that's for another program. But to me, we're not educating until we get more. But a child doesn't really drop out. A child is really pushed
Push
out.
down. Wow.
So we've got some things we need to work on. And we want to pray for our kids going in. We want to pray that we don't get another Uvalde kind of situation or
Hmm.
Parkland situation or the church schools that were people coming. Kids are easy targets. Schools are easy targets. You don't want to make them prisons, but you have to keep the children safe.
Oh
And
wow. That's
the
what.
top 10 countries that I had here were Finland,
Hmm.
Singapore, you said Asia,
Hmm.
Japan, South Korea, let's see, Canada, the Netherlands,
Hmm.
New Zealand, Norway.
Hmm.
Those are they. But I know that we may not, you know, score on certain tests, but we've got to remember we're working with little human beings, and why are we working with them? What is it we hope to gain as we go through that? But it's a great question at the beginning of the school year.
What uh do you feel? You said the state gives did you say $10,000? Because here it said in 2024 the U.S. spends 100 wait a minute $17,700 per pupil on K-12 public education. What are they doing?
Well, there are a lot of requirements, um, you know, that they have, and a lot of what we have now. Let's just be honest. The same thing that's happening with when you go grocery shopping or when you
Hmm.
do anything. That money doesn't go as far as it could go. But every district has reserves or should have reserves
Hmm.
so that, you know, it's not like if they, you know, this is a $20 million budget. There's money
Hmm.
still there. And then, bless God, the state of Texas has a permanent a fund, you know, that's been set up over the years and money from oil leases and things like that.
Hmm.
You know, the kids are not going to run out of money. Districts are going to have to learn to adjust to
Hmm.
not having some things while at the same time it is not having what you may want, but having enough of what you need to accomplish what should be done.
Okay. Okay. What, okay. Do you feel? have this thing. Education to me should be top priority with the government, but they say like they don't care. Those in the they act like they don't care about the teachers and the students like they should. I'll say like that. They don't. I don't think they pay the teachers enough.
They don't. They
You
don't.
know, and they should be some of the highest paid people in the world. To me, I feel like that because teachers are very important. They have our children, what is it, 8 hours a day and sometimes 10 hours a day because some don't get to go home until what, 5 and 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I know.
And
I know.
you know exactly. You've been
And,
you were a teacher. You've been a principal too, right?
right.
Yeah. So you know it from the beginning to the end, from the bottom to the top. You know all about that. You know all about that. But the thing is that the compassion that teachers like you, educators and principals have for the children. And some of those children have been very blessed because they have people like you, or they had.
Right.
But I wanted to say that. I wanted to say that. So we have,
Education.
go ahead.
But you have to remember that for some kids, you know, let's just talk a little bit about what they call emotional intelligence. But for some kids, the first nice word they hear is the security guard, not security guard, the crossing guard in the morning, or the bus driver in the morning, then the cafeteria worker. You got to remember, school has become everything for kids. It has become the place you want them to do everything. You want them to teach. You want them to counsel. You want them to be drug czars. You want them to be high security people. But let's get back to teaching. You know,
Right.
but we can't in the society where we are in now. You know, it- it's very uncomfortable to lock a door to have to teach a class in a locked room. Uh,
Hmm.
but these are the times. The last thing I want to say about education is that it is a political football. You
Hmm.
don't hear about education in any state until it's election time. You
Hmm.
know, this we're gonna make it better, we're gonna do this, but then you forget about it. You know, not you, but the
I
person
understand exactly what you're saying.
running
Yes.
forgets about it. So it's very important that, as you said earlier, remember, who brought you here. You
Right.
know, you know, do the eyes of the brother kind of thing. Then,
Hmm.
dance with the one you with. Well, let's don't forget how that works.
Right. Oh, wow. Wonderful, Dr. Mack. I have enjoyed being with you today. And we covered every one of our topics.
Yeah, we got the major ones. We forgot we didn't get to the ones about the events that's coming up.
Oh, okay. Events, what is it? Something
You
that's
know,
happening in the
yeah,
world. Oh,
yeah.
okay. Go right ahead.
Well, mine is the Olympics. And then we're talking
Yes.
about this other serious stuff. Let's talk about the competition. I am enjoying the Olympics. I mean, I'm looking at stuff that I wouldn't normally look at, and that's the whole point. And I hope the children had a chance to do that. If you don't know anything about breaking, well, you should. But if you don't, they got breaking in there. There's a triathlon. You got swimming. You got cycling. And then look at the Star Trek kind of people from all over the world. Rugby.
Yes.
We don't play rugby in our neighborhood, but God knows we need to know it. Water
Hmm.
polo, come on. You know,
Hmm.
let our children grow from the things that cost us nothing to expose them to.
Right.
But that's what I had on my mind.
Okay, that sounds good. And the things that are happening today, we're still having people murdered by the people who are supposed to be protecting us. And then we have crime upon crime upon crime. And then, but the concern I have is that people are not being dealt with like they should be for committing these. It's just like I was saying about the people in the Supreme Court. It seems like they can do whatever they want to do and just no, don't. have any consequences for it. And so a lot of this, I want. It's so much going on in the world, but that is one of my concerns as to how people can uh, kill people, hurt people. They're supposed to be in an authoritative position to where they can help us and supposed to be our equal to protect and to serve. Yet, to me, sometimes it seems like they feel like it's open season and they can do whatever they want to do. And then the thing that hurts me also is that people of the people who are being violated and murdered and mistreated and all of that, people of their own ethnic persuasion are siding with the people who hurt the people. Now that really bothers me. It bothers me overall as a whole that it's happening, but we know that these things are going to happen. But if they would start reckoning with the people that do that and really punishing these people, I think much of this will slow down a lot. I'm saying a lot, quite a lot. So that's my concern of it. What is brutality, and it just seems like it's open season. And so anyway, we know that we continue to pray and everything, but then we have to take action too, and we have to like laws and things. Uh, that we have to, well, we have laws in place, but people just don't care because when they get to a certain point where they feel and they nudge and see how far they can go, and they can get away with so much. So that concerns me that people are still being murdered and abused and mistreated uh, by people who are supposed to be protecting them. So
Thank you.
yes, sir. So anyway, hey, we have had a
Well,
full agenda today, and I am so glad, and I thank you so much, Dr. Mack. Thank you so much. And I want to remind everyone on Wednesdays, beginning at 2:15 p.m., you can watch the biblical file from the biblical files of Dr. Mack right here where you're watching right now. And I tell you, going into number 22.
yes.
Number 22. Wow, that's wonderful. Congratulations. And to everyone, don't forget tomorrow at 7:39 p.m., which is Saturday, and Sunday at 7 a.m., Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m., and then, of course, Wednesdays at 2:15 p.m. And we love you so much. Dr. Mack, would you like to have some closing remarks?
No, just take care of yourselves. Pray for the kids and join us again next week.
All right. Love you, everybody. Love you, Dr. Mack. All right. We're going to go ahead and do our sign off here. Let me do it.